Welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I bring you a two-part interview that I did with Robert Prouse. So the first part of the interview, we talked all about Franklin Prouse, Rob's dad. So we got to learn all about how he got to start up Prouse Motors, but some other interesting things. So let's get into the episode. What can you tell us about your dad's early years? When and where was he born?
He was born in Brampton, Ontario, and ended up moving to Toronto with his family, where he met my mom. I think he was like 9 years old. They lived near Jane and Bloor, in Toronto. Yeah.
So I saw he went to the University of Toronto schools.
Yeah, you've been on our website.
Yeah. Well, the museum actually, we have a write-up on him. I think it was an article that was done sort of in the 80s.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Dad was really talk about giving to the community. He volunteered a lot. Mm-hmm. Rotarian, sat on hospital board, sat on, of course, was heavily involved in his church and things like that. But yeah, he just liked being around people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I see you're going to ask me about the Keewatin here.
Yes.
Yeah. So my dad was wired to he was enamored with ships. And I remember him telling me when I was a young guy that a ship is the largest thing that man makes that moves. And he's right. Mm-hmm. He's right. So he was really enamored with ships. And so their cottage was in the Georgian Bay, about 8 miles north of Honey Harbor. And after, while attending UTS, and then after he graduated there, he ended up going to Royal Roads Naval Academy out in Victoria, BC. And this is in 1944. If I'm not mistaken. It was either 43 or 44. Anyway, he had to get a summer job, and the cottage was close to Midland, Ontario, or Port McNicoll, Ontario, which is where the Keewatin went from. And the Keewatin and Assiniboia were two Canadian Pacific boats, passenger vessels that took people from Port McNicoll, which is near Midland, Ontario, to the lakehead. At the time, it was I think Port Arthur is where they docked, but that's obviously Thunder Bay now. Yeah. And Dad got a summer job waitering on the Keewatin in the summer of 44 and 45, if I'm not mistaken. So that's how he discovered the Sault, because he was through here 26 times, 13 trips a season. And he was through here 26 times each summer. Mm-hmm. And he really was enamored with the amount of ships and the location and the amount of fresh water. Mm-hmm. And so the Keewatin, and it's a subject all on its own. Keewatin and Assiniboia were, in their day, were pretty cool ships. And you really wanted for nothing. The food was good. The cabins were, in those standards, Edwardian standards in the early 1900s. The cabins were up to snuff and pretty cool. And they operated in tandem. They would meet every Sunday morning and every Wednesday morning at the government dock. I don't know if you've ever wondered why the government dock is like it is, but it was designed specifically for Keewatin and its sister ship, Assiniboia. Okay. And they both land approximately the same time. So Canadian Pacific built that huge warehouse that is now Prouse,
Mm-hmm.
and built that huge L-shaped dock.
Okay.
Yeah, and right in front of the Bush Plane Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So on Sunday mornings, and if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday mornings, it was a real going concern as the two ships came together for a couple of hours. They took on supplies, they took on passengers, because lots of people from the Soo would head that down to southern Ontario, or they'd go to the lakehead.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, Canadian Pacific really, in the early 1900s until 1965, which is I think when they stopped with the Keewatin and Assiniboia. And unfortunately, fire regulations put them out of business, because all those steamers had wood, wood in the superstructure. And, that's what put Norgoma out of business too. Fire regulations.
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. What's next?
So then, he went on to Royal Roads.
Yeah.
And so saw that he graduated in 1946. And then, so what did he do sort of after that? And then like between that time and the time that he came up to the Soo?
Yeah. Well, he went to work for Canadian Pacific.
Okay.
And he was actually assistant to one of the top guys on the Canadian Pacific, and was his male secretary.
Okay.
And followed him all over the country. So my dad's second love, of course, his first love was ships. Well, his first love was my mother, but his hobbies were ships, and then trains.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was, for a couple of years, he was assistant to, or the secretary to this fellow. Dad even knew shorthand. So if this fellow had to dictate a letter, Dad would write it down and then type it out and send it off. So he was into all areas that the Canadian Pacific Railway serviced after the war. So that's 46, 47. And then he ended up doing an exchange, and he went back into the Navy, and he ended up doing an exchange with the British Navy, and ended up down in Antarctica on an 8-month, if I'm not mistaken, an 8-month tour on I'm not sure whether it was a frigate. No, it was a destroyer, the Glasgow, and he ended up being in Argentina, Uruguay. Got involved, or was in Argentina as the whole, who was it, Juan Perón, or the whatever revolution occurred down there, and he kind of had a front row seat. Is it even in Juan Perón? I can't remember.
I think so.
Yeah,
it sounds right.
I should have studied. I should have studied up on that. But they ended up in the Falklands, and the Falklands, the island of South Georgia, and they did their tour. And of course, the British were just there to show the flag. And then Dad, on that expedition, caught tuberculosis. And so he, next thing, found himself in one of those sanatoriums in Toronto, and ended up one day just being fed up, and he got dressed and walked out and went home and convalesced there, and basically spent a year trying to get over TB. At that point, I think we're dealing with 1949, 1950, and tuberculosis was fairly common back then. So it was a real unfortunate thing for him to have to go through, but he persevered, and I think kind of consummated his relationship with my mom. and which was interesting. As I said, I think Dad was 10 years old when he first met my mom, and they were neighbors, 4 or 5 homes down.
Mm-hmm.
So the two of them were meant to be. It's a really romantic story. So, so then after that, Dad ended up looking for work, and he worked for my grandfather, who was running an importing business, and I'm not exactly sure. I should know more about that, but I don't. And then he ended up working at a Chrysler store.
Okay.
I think, of course, getting married in '53, in and around that time, or '52. And he ended up working at a Chrysler store in the GTA. And in and around 1956, expressed interest, both Chrysler and General Motors, that he wanted, uh, he had collected enough capital and borrowed enough money, and that he wanted to become an automobile dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And so GM, fortunately for him, GM took a liking to him and set him up in Acton, Ontario. And so in 1956, he became the Pontiac Buick dealer in Acton. And then in 1958, he became the Pontiac Buick dealer in Georgetown. So flash forward to 1962, and GM offered him Sault Ste. Marie,
mm-hmm.
and or Ottawa. Well, actually, it was either the Sioux or Ottawa. And of course, because of his love of the Sioux, and having traversed through here numerous times, he took the Sioux.
Oh.
And that's how he ended up in Sault Ste. Marie.
Mm.
Approximately 5 or 6 days before the International Bridge opened.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm.
So, where are we now?
Yeah. So now that's how we got to the opportunity of coming up and getting the store here. So how many Prouse locations have there been?
Well, there have been a total of 3.
Okay.
So the first one was, and it's kind of an interesting story. The first one was where the old Western Tire building is. The building still stands down by the bus stop.
Okay.
And so Dad came up and started in September of '62, and basically by mid-'65, Pontiac, incidentally run by Mr. John DeLorean. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you've heard the name DeLorean.
Yep.
But Pontiac, headed by Mr. John DeLorean, had captured a quarter of the Canadian market.
Okay. And
so by mid-1965, and they did that by innovative marketing and great product. And John DeLorean was quite an operator, but he was the president of Pontiac Motor Division. Mm. So Dad was General Motors basically phoned him up and said, "You need a new location that can handle your volume, because you're just not big enough."
Yeah.
And the volume, that was picking up and picking up. And so he had to make a decision. And then in 1966, he actually in '65 he bought Highland Ford's property.
Okay.
And was going to build a dealership there. And then in '66, and sometime before he had to make the commitment, another property came open, which was a grocery store.
Okay.
At 44 Great Northern Road, which is basically where Cambrian Mall is. Mm-hmm. And that dealership, or that grocery store, was located just to the north of where the current Pit Stop gas bar is.
Okay.
So it originally had been built as a dealership. Then it had been changed into a grocery store. And then Dad was going to lease it back from Loblaws. Mm-hmm. And Loblaws turned it back into a car dealership. And then things moved forward, and they built Century Plaza around it, and all that sort of thing. And then, of course, it got to a point where in 1978 or 77, I think, they started the Cambry Mall, and Canadian Tire committed to going in into where the current location is. And Canadian Tire ended up buying the property that we were on from Loblaws.
Okay.
And so it was communicated to Dad at that point that Loblaws or Canadian Tire was not interested in renewing the lease. So in 1979, he bought the current location, which is 851 Great Northern Road. And that was kind of a goofy thing because everybody thought, what is he doing moving up there? Because at the time it was an apple orchard, and there was really not much going on. Mm-hmm. But, at the time he was kind of, he made the right move because I arguably think that our current location is probably the nicest spot for a car dealership.
Yeah.
So in October of 1980, we moved from 44 Great Northern Road up to 851, and 851 has gone through numerous changes since then, with volume increasing and things like that. We've had to obviously make some changes to make the place more efficient. So that's the three locations: the old Western Tire Store, 44 Great Northern Road, which is no longer there, which is just a parking lot now, and then 851 Great Northern Road, which is where we currently are. So
yeah. And now, what other businesses did your family own? Sort of like.
Yeah, well, again, because of Dad's love of boats, and boating being his hobby, he ended up buying the Chief Shinwalk in the spring of 1974. And that was a pet project for him because basically what he did is he went back and he renewed his captain's license. And by the mid 70s, I think his interest in the car business had maybe, his enthusiasm had waned a bit, or he was just more interested in piloting a tour boat. On the river and going through the locks and being involved with all the ships and all the scuttlebutt that was going on in the world of shipping in the Sioux area. And Dad was very, he just interconnected himself with, I guess the proper term is networking, but he networked himself and just knew just about everybody. And so the Shinwalk was a natural thing for him, and he was just so, he was just a real keener that way. I can remember him coming up and telling me, I can remember him coming up and I was, as he would on a regular basis finding out what was going on at the dealership, and he'd be all wound up because someone didn't splice a rope properly or something like that. And he was just, he loved his boating. So he owned the Shinwalk from 74 to about 2010.
Okay.
And tried to move the boat locally, but as it turned out, Rockport Boat Lines down in Gananoque gave him the price that he wanted, and the boat, was personally delivered down through the Welland Canal to the Gananoque area, and still operates down there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I guess sort of like what else did your dad do outside of sort of like these businesses?
Yeah,
saw that he was sort of really, really involved.
Well, you've done your homework here. Valley Camp president.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that he was sort of the president of the Valley Camp, it being like over on the American side.
Yes. Good for you. Well, there's a story there. Dad bought his recreational boat in Escanaba, Michigan, and for the first 7 or 8 years kept it on the American side.
Okay.
So, we were traversing the International Bridge on many occasions, especially the night that the Fitzgerald went down, because we wanted to check the boat and make sure everything was all right. As it turned out, at the dock that the boat that his pleasure craft was docked at was fairly sheltered.
Okay.
And so it didn't. It was in good shape. But anyway, so Dad kept his boat over in Sioux, Michigan, right by the Valley Camp. And of course, with his networking capabilities and his love of people, he started interacting with the people at the Valley Camp, which was right beside the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked away at that and got himself on the board. A fellow by the name of Tom Mance befriended Dad, and here you had a Canadian running, or as president of whatever association was running the Valley Camp. So that was really weird. And he met George Steinbrenner.
Okay.
Steinbrenner, and he also met John Glenn doing that. For some reason, they were up doing some publicity things. I think Steinbrenner donated, and I'm not clear on this, but Steinbrenner had something to do with donating something to the Valley Camp.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it might have been the Valley Camp itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but whatever it is, I think the city of Sioux, Michigan paid $1 for it or something. So anyway, he ended up over there, which was kind of, as I say, kind of different because, but he was also a Rotarian on the Canadian side. And so, and also served on the board at Central United Church. So he was a busy guy.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember him coming home from meetings at all times of the night. Just always on the go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the Valley Camp thing was interesting because we really can't sell cars.
Yeah.
We can't sell cars to Americans, and we can sell used cars, but normally you would get intertwined with your community in the community that you can do business with people.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, great people over there. Yeah, it was a good time.
And then also I read that he was sort of instrumental in helping to get the Norgoma here.
Yes. Well, because of his experience on the Valley Camp,
mm-hmm.
he thought Sioux, Ontario should have a museum ship as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to his credit, he did some lobbying and talked to the MP. And again, the Norgoma and Norisle were doing the run between Tobermory and South Bay Mouth on Manitoulin Island.
Mm-hmm.
And they suffered from the same thing that Keewatin and Assiniboia and all those ships built in those times because of the wood superstructure.
Mm-hmm.
The Norgoma was taken out of service and replaced by the Chichiman, which currently still operates.
Yeah.
And Norisle was taken out of service too. So they had the choice between the two, and because Nargoma bared the name, he lobbied heavily for that, and they ended up getting it for $1. And I mean, there's lots of controversy around the Nargoma, but you know what? The Nargoma employed a lot of summer students, and in my case, or in my circle of friends, also consummated some marriages. So there were people that worked on the Shinwalk that met people working on the Nargoma.
Oh, okay.
And one of my best friends married a young lady he worked on the Shinwalk, and she worked on the Nargoma. So the Nargoma was and the Nargoma was a great example of a passenger carrying ship that serviced the North Shore originally. She was built to serve the Sioux, Bruce Mines, Blind River, I think Meldrum Bay on Manitoulin Island, Gore Bay, and as part of Ontario Northland, which I'm not exactly sure what entity that was back in the 50s when it was built. But anyway, that's the Nargoma was a nice boat, and lots of people, it was a nice museum, and lots of people learned, and it was a nice tourist attraction. So,
yep. And another thing that I was reading that he helped to sort of lobby for was the reopening of the Canadian locks.
Oh yeah. The Shinwalk, I think, was in the Canadian lock when it busted. And what I mean by that is the concrete wall came out 2 or 3 feet, and on the west side, the southwest side of the canal, just inside the gates, and so they had to back out. And yeah, that shocked everybody in the tour boat business on both sides of the river. The Canadian lock, of course, was open in 1895. So, and I think it was 1987 when it broke. So, it had operated a long time and really didn't owe anybody anything. But you can't have a lock that's compromised, and so what Dad did is he lobbied heavily with the Conservative government at the time, and the MP that he worked with, which, if I'm not mistaken, was Steve Butlin, and they got the money to build a lock within the lock, which is currently in operation. And so the Sioux Canal on the Canadian side is, purely a recreational lock. So me and my in our boat, we go up there a couple of times a season, and he felt fairly strongly about it, because why are we here? Well, we're here. Primarily, we started being here because of the rapids, and the locks bypass the rapids.
Yeah.
And really, that's, our identity, the Sioux's identity, obviously the biggest thing is Algoma Steel. But really, Algoma Steel wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the water itself either.
Yep.
So he felt fairly strongly about that, and definitely lobbied heavily and spent a lot of time and resources on getting that lock back open. The tour boats, and of course he owned the Shinwalk, the tour boats for close to 10 years had to go up through the American locks, out and around over to Algoma Steel, and then they had to come back down through the Canadian locks, or the American Canal. The normal tour was a clockwise tour up through the American locks over to Algoma Steel to show everybody kind of a worm's eye view of Algoma Steel, which in itself is interesting. And then back down through the Canadian Lock and into the harbor. And for 10 years, for a number of seasons, they couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So when they reopened the lock, and I can't tell you what year it reopened, I think it was 97.
Yep.
I think. That restored balance to the force. And so the American Lock Tour and of course the Chinook could do their clockwise tour of the locks and Algoma Steel. It's a great tour. It's a great tour. Miss Marie's running now for visitors in the Sioux. Great tour to go on. Mm-hmm. Very, very, very educational. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've worked on a tour boat in Toronto, and I mean the Toronto Island tour was okay, but nothing beats going into a lock with a ship.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary, and so we have a great opportunity here to showcase that in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, also saw that he was involved with the Algoma Kinawabi Travel Association.
Yes, I'd forgotten about that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, again, he's a people person. With the tour boat, he got involved with Algoma Kinawabi, obviously because it was in his best interest to keep as many people in the Sioux as possible on the Canadian side. And between him, my mother, and my daughter, or their daughter, Elizabeth, my sister, they attended numerous conventions and in the States and in the GTA to promote Lock Tours Canada and get people up here, and they were never disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he again. My parents were very, very people oriented. They had a lot of fun and interacted in a big way with other people. And you never knew who you were going to have mom and dad hosting. People from all over the world. Captains from cruise ships that they cruised on. They befriended, American friends, people from the UK. You never knew who was going to come in and visit. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Yeah, and I also saw that not only was he a board member with Sioux College, but that he also helped to fund their new aquatic center, and they actually named the center after him.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You have done your homework.
Yes.
Yes. Well, as I say, he got involved, and I forgot about his affiliation with the Sioux College Board of Directors. But yes, and he did make a sizable donation to the aquatic center, where he watched it being built because Mom and Dad lived in Harborview.
Okay.
And they watched people at RITAC play tennis and things like that, and the opportunity came up, and he made a sizable donation, and there's a building named after him down there. Mm. So they had great fun watching it being built.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. But they, again, they liked the interaction of the community. The Sioux is such a, it's a big town, but in a certain sense, it's a small town. And the people that they interacted with, just solid people. And I can say the same for me. It's a great town to do business with and network with, and they had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of fun, and that I think that's the secret to life, because that they had a good income, from the car business and the tour boat business, and yet they enjoyed it and enjoyed the people.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good gig. So
yeah. All right. So
does that give you?
Yes.
I might talk too much.
Oh, it's okay. We're good. So with the last part with your dad, we have this final question. So if in 100 years the museum was ever to feature an exhibit on him, what do you think the title of the exhibit be? Maybe like the tagline, and then what 3 artifacts would best represent him?
Oh boy. Well, what tagline is, I don't know, get that line ashore. Or tighten up. Something to do with a boat line. Mm-hmm. Because that's all he killed me, because when he had a certain process to making the dock in the bigger boat that he had, and then he sold it and went to a smaller boat, and he even had a process with that. My poor mother, I think, almost lost a finger or two on occasion, because he would come into the dock a certain way, and then you'd tie the rope, and then it would swing the boat around and so on. It would probably be tighten up on that line. That would be his tagline. And wow, 3 artifacts that would represent him. Well, probably Cullenberg engine and reverse gear from his boat. It was an old tugboat engine that is now in a museum in Michigan.
Okay.
And it was a big old slow turning diesel engine that had a top speed of 360 revs per minute. Just tons of low end torque. And it was put in this pleasure craft, Dad's trawler. So it was really kind of strange, because it was a commercial engine in a personal boat. But I would say that engine, probably something, of course, the love of his life was my mother. So probably something to do with her, and their shared love throughout the years. I'm trying to think about what that would be.
Maybe a picture of them on their wedding day?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's on their on their gravestone.
Oh, okay.
Not a picture of them on their wedding day, but that's a good one. But the picture of them on the stern of the boat.
Okay.
And it's quite a nice picture too. So anyway, as for a 3rd artifact, probably, I don't know, he always drove Buicks. So I don't know, a Buick Riviera. Hard to fit into the museum though.
Yes.
Yeah, pair of binoculars.
Okay.
Because he was always, you get up in the wheelhouse of the boat. Where are my glasses? Give me my glasses. And of course, then he'd be looking through just to check everything out. Honest to God, not a fish moved on the river without him knowing it. So.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might like our blog too. Head over to our website, SaultMuseum, that's SAULT museum.ca, and look under Discover. You will find our blog, Museum Musings. We share short synopsis of influential people, historic places, and impactful events in our history. Pictures are always included, and you will be sure to learn a little something new with each post.
Today's quote comes from Algoma Central Railway by O.S. Knock. This quote is from 1909 by Algoma Central about the tourist attractions of this area. Quote, The time has come when tired humanity seeks surcease from heat, smoke, toil, and trouble, and the exodus begins to the waters where blow cold breezes, and to the woods where there is rest and shade. End quote.